Red Dead Redemption 2 for many people is the greatest game ever made, and that's for good reason. It has amazing writing and narrative beats, characters that will make you cry, and a setting that feels more reactive than any game ever made to date. But for a lot of us, the best part of this game is something a lot more simple: the world and the beauty that it so perfectly captures. From the Baroque city streets of St. Denis to the desert wastelands of New Austin, or even the woodlands full of tall trees and swamps or mountain ranges covered in snow. Throughout the runtime of Red Dead 2, there's not a single moment you can find, not a single frame, not one time that you couldn't pause, take a screenshot, and marvel at the beauty in front of you. And that's because there's a special feeling you get in this game, even just walking around, where every distance in front of you is covered in serene wilderness. Bears stalk their prey in the mask of the woods, alligators comb the depths of waters and swamps, and the scariest monsters of all, humans, react so realistically and believably to situations that it's hard not to fall instantly in love with this world's trance. There's so many times when playing this game where you will be galloping your horse across a massive valley and just have to stop to take it all in, as a sunset starts to swallow the sky whole and dawn begins to set in, as a campfire rages in the distance and the howls of wolves can be heard in a canyon miles off, or the sounds of your footsteps as they clap through the dirt beneath your feet and the moon illuminates your travels at night. There's a special sort of craftsmanship in the world on offer here, and even though I personally find it so tedious to play at times because of how slow and methodical it is, I can't deny that it really just adds to the beauty of this world. And on top of this, there's so many times in this game that the use of cinematography and lighting come to life and transform otherwise ordinary scenes into old western style Tarantino-esque adventure, like robbing a train barreling through the deep woods, or the infamous shootout at the manor. But throughout it all, the shining star continues to be the world, and just how elegantly crafted it all is. The landscape, like snow, will deform under your feet as you traverse it, and the animals you shoot will litter blood throughout the environment like a crime scene. There really is just a movement to this world that feels so real, and because of that, it's one of the most immersive out there. And even now, years after the game's initial release, it still continues to be one of the greatest looking of all time, with vistas and environments that have yet to be matched. I mean, truly, look at some of these scenes. They go beyond even what words could describe, and instead capture a deeper sense of beauty within all of us that games seldom manage to understand, even many of the greats. Sometimes the best part of a game isn't the fun combat or the twists and turns in a story, but rather just those slower moments. Those moments where you forego all the action and instead gaze out into the world in front of you and watch as the sky turns black, the trees begin to wobble in the wind, and the animals' eyes glow with anticipation. Too often in games we focus on gameplay and story that often we forget just how important, and even more interestingly, how impactful amazing graphics and art design can really be. Because at the end of the day, games are about making us get lost in another world, and maybe more than any other games out there, Red Dead Redemption 2 focuses solely on this goal of crafting a world so true, so real, and so raw that simply by being in it, you can't help but to be captured by its spell. Without a doubt, one of the most beautiful game worlds of all time. There simply aren't any other worlds out there quite like Skyrim. Its frozen tundras, its underground caves full of secret ancient civilizations long forgotten, and forests teeming with life, all that give birth to something that's hard to capture in words alone. And that's because more than anything, Skyrim is a game that seizes a sense of beauty that can't even be described. That feeling you get as you round a bend atop an embodying mountain and the music swells into the scene, as a storm rises on the horizon overlooking a massive and sprawling world, all yours to explore. And no matter what you decide to do, no matter which way you choose to venture forth, there's always a story waiting to be told. Random encounters that transition into full quest lines, and flora and fauna alike interacting with one another seamlessly. The world feels alive in ways that many others don't. Every location you go to feels lived in, whether it be in caves or cities alike, and each is masterfully constructed to tell stories on their own through nothing more than the environment, like seeing the light of a fire illuminate a cave's entrance in the distance, only to find half-eaten skeletons inside, which evokes a sense of wonder and storytelling without even one word being spoken. And there are countless breathtaking environments that litter this game world, from the underground and cosmic Blackreach to the thrones of Sovngarde and the Throat of the World. Each and every location is distinct and mesmerizing in its own way, all painting the picture that this world is one worth exploring. But maybe the greatest accomplishment of this game, and really the entire Elder Scrolls series of games as a whole, is the feelings they inspire in all of us. So many games have never-ending open worlds filled to the brim with fetch quests and locations that serve no other purpose than to facilitate some sort of gameplay element. But Skyrim forgoes all of that, instead focusing on making each scene a moment to its own. The gameplay loop of Skyrim is exploring. It's about the journey, not the destination. Walking around in an open field and hearing the roar of a dragon in the distance pierce through the sounds of a river flowing next to you. That's what real exploration is all about. The beauty in this game doesn't come from the combat or the dialogue, or even in most cases the quests, which I think often are lackluster. It comes from truly feeling like there is a world out there to explore, and one that is home to so many different and amazing environments. And maybe one of the biggest strengths that adds to all of this is the setting, because Skyrim takes place in the northern lands of Tamriel, the continent the Elder Scrolls games take place in, and this means most of the region is covered in snow or blistering cold. It's an almost depressing, yet surprisingly serene feeling that almost no other worlds capture. Every step you take in this world feels foreboding and worrisome, where it feels like at any point you could succumb to the weather, or even worse, a giant monster hiding in the shadows. But beneath all of that is music and set dressing that crafts some of the most memorable moments I've had in games, where simply the beauty and strangely the slowness of the world completely sweep you into the experience. You know, sometimes beauty isn't about having the best graphics or the most advanced lighting engine. Sometimes it's about nothing more than giving the player a sense that there's a world out there worth exploring, that only by slowing down and taking in each environment and the things it has to say can we go on one of the most important adventures in our life. More than maybe any game out there, Skyrim is one that truly encapsulates what a game world should be. Something that, on nothing more than beauty alone, can sustain entire decades worth of stories and fandom that clamor for more. The reason I'm so excited for Elder Scrolls 6 isn't the quests, the writing, the gameplay, or the updated graphics. It's the fact that something might just come along again and create a world so beautiful that despite many of its pitfalls, you can't help but get lost in it. Something Skyrim so elegantly showed us years ago. Beauty doesn't always come from colorful and upbeat lighting or vast open plains of wilderness. Sometimes beauty comes from within, or even from the darkest places in our humanity. Broken down and graffitied sidewalks, trash and despair littering your entire field of view, and most importantly, a heart beneath all of that tragedy that serves as a beacon of light amongst all the hate. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the most beautiful game worlds of all time, not because it has amazing graphics, ray tracing, and architecture, but because each place in this world tells a story that gnaws at the core of what it means to be human. More than maybe any game out there, the world, the city of Cyberpunk is its own character, one full of violence, tragedy, but also beauty. From the rolling and dusty plains of the Badlands to the chaos at city center, each location in Cyberpunk 2077 feels lived in and like it's composed of a history all to its own. You can sense a concentration of wealth in some locations, while others are characterized by struggle at every turn. And beneath every building, atop every roof, are stories of harrowing betrayal and the lowest points of the human condition. There is death, murder, and ritualistic offerings around every bend, and it really gives off the impression that this is a world born and bred by destruction and disarray. But as you peel back the layers to this universe more, you discover that it isn't about how corporations ruin the world or about how everyone is out for themselves. It's about those characters and the people you meet. About how despite all of the hardships that everyone has become accustomed to, that there's a deep sense of humanity and love still at the heart of many people. Looking into the eyes and souls of the characters you meet on this journey as they suffer some of the greatest hardships known to man, you get the sense that there's a beauty to this game that's almost hard to put into words. Sitting with Carrie Eurodyne on his boat sifting through the waves, or holding Judy against your chest as she cries in pain at losing the one she held most close. What really makes the world of Cyberpunk so beautiful is that it turns a mirror onto our own and makes us ask the questions we all ought to in our real lives. And now with Phantom Liberty 2, the best zone in the game has come to life, where in Dogtown simply walking around is an experience in itself. Buildings that reach into the sky, surrounded by rundown shacks and shanty towns that lend themselves as homes to the less fortunate. More than maybe any game in my life, Cyberpunk is the one that made me appreciate all of this the most. There were so many times in my playthrough where I would just stop to take it all in, walking slowly in every location and just watching the people, the city come to life, where I listened to the sounds and took inspiration from the verticality of it all and the insanely detailed and thoughtful architecture. There's no other game that even comes close to how real this city feels, with all the back alleys and hidden rooftops and ways to get to places. It truly is the most breathtaking single city ever put in a game. And with path and ray tracing included, this means every bit of light refracts and cascades across each scene with extreme precision, and it makes every little detail pop. Each new location, item, and character looks so much more grounded and real. There are moments in this game where you will be caught off guard by just how amazing it looks from a purely graphical standpoint, and it really adds to the immersion in a way so many other games don't. I know a lot of people talk about how gameplay matters more than graphics, and while I agree, I think graphics and art design can play such a key role in making a world feel immersive and real, and thus creating a sense of awe that otherwise would be missing, and Cyberpunk has this in spades. And throughout it all, you're accompanied by one of the greatest soundtracks ever, where simply driving around hundreds of miles an hour through busy streets and listening to heavy metal rock music is just another day at work. So when those slower moments with characters do hit, as you look out onto a sunset, over a river, atop a mountain, it hits all that harder, and reminds us that even in the most twisted and terrifying places, ones full of hatred and sorrow, there's still a beauty beneath it all that can light a fire within our souls, unlike anything else out there. A beauty you have to play to understand. Mass Effect 1 is, in my opinion, the best Mass Effect game ever made, and it's not even close. I love the story, the villains, and the locations that to this day almost no other games have matched. But maybe the single most intriguing factor about this timeless classic is the beautiful world which it introduced us to. Not a world full of realistic graphics and ray tracing, but one that instead sought to capture our hearts and souls, crafting places and memories that will forever stand the test of time, like Sovereign's greatest villain speech ever in a game, or the final battle at the Citadel. There's a distinct style and essence that only the Mass Effect series envelops, and the first installment was the one that really nailed it. There are cold and brooding planets full of top secret research like Noveria and Pharos, and others that feel more like a paradise light years away from home, a la Vermeer. But through it all is a distinct sense of a high-tech world fashioned from science and ingenuity, full of places like the Citadel, characterized by blinding white and pristine color hues. And you know, oftentimes sci-fi tries to feel more grounded in a way, providing locations that almost look like something out of the modern day, but with a few enhancements. But Mass Effect 1 isn't like that. It's unapologetically advanced. Everything you go to feels futuristic in a good way. And because of how foreign many places can feel, it's all the more interesting really diving into every location and the lore behind it. Even with the now dated graphics and gameplay, often combined with muted color tones reminiscent of games of the Xbox 360 era, there still is so much beauty that can be extracted from the entire ensemble. And that's because one of my favorite things about some old games is that they can light our imaginations even more than newer titles, because where they lack in believability, our brains can fill in the gaps. And what better place to do that than an entire universe that is begging to be explored, with dozens of new alien races and fascinating lore to really dig through. You know, there's a galaxy map in the game where you can set your sights on every planet giant asteroid in the Milky Way. And even for the ones you can't travel to, just reading into the deep lore and science behind every location never gets old. Part of having a world worth getting lost in is making it feel like a real place with a real history to it that you get rewarded for digging into. And on top of that, there's also tons of desolate barren rocks that you can land on that really make the universe feel expansive. Because while moments like this can be boring and tedious after some time, it adds to the beauty and wonder of this galaxy and world that just keeps on giving the more you give to it. And honestly, there really is just something about that 80s simplistic Art Deco style in some of the interiors and the creepy yet hauntingly beautiful dread that some of the scenes evoke that add to the whole experience. Whether it be underground neon lit bars and clubs, or massive sprawling valleys that stretch into the distance that you can drive through, all barred by invisible walls, there's a magic to this game and its world that is just so unique to the time it was made in and the style of RPGs at that period. As I said, I'm the type of person that loves newer games and updated graphics and just having the best of the best. But sometimes you have to sit back and appreciate just how beautiful some of the older stuff was in its own way too. And I think Mass Effect 1 is a prime candidate for making a sci-fi world that really catches not only your eyes, but your soul. Ghost of Tsushima is one of the most beautiful game worlds of all time. Whether it's the vibrant colors in every scene, or how the trees sway in the hands of the wind as they beckon the player towards each and every goal. There's a tranquility and stillness that this game understands that often is left void in other titles. And that's because Ghost of Tsushima is all about the journey, not the destination. Taking place during the Mongols' invasion and conquest of Japan, the setting is ripe with political intrigue and sets the tone of the entire epic storyline. But the real shining achievement here is just how cinematic the world really is. Every second you play feels like a blockbuster movie, moving from scenes in scenic and bombastic locations like Yamabuashi's Peak and the Golden Forest to more somber and evocative set dressing a la the Spirit Grove Cemetery or the Drowned Man's Shore. And each of these unmistakable zones is home to a very unique feeling all to its own. Some are black and white, some have gusting winds that sway the blooming blossom trees with petals cascading through the air, and others provide endless fields of rice ripe for the picking. But no matter where you go in game, you never lose a complete and utter sense of imagination, of pure beauty brought to life on screen. It's one of those games where you simply lose track of time as you play, because you really do get fully immersed into the world and become so overwhelmed by it. Even during many of the combat sections, especially with some of the bosses, watching as the camera pans out and the scene comes to life as you shift your feet through mounds of leaves never gets old. And even just the way in which the world is designed and how you travel through it is all constructed in the most cinematic way possible. You truly become a samurai warrior in a mystical place of dreams almost. And you see, the beauty of this world and its setting is the main character of the game, and feudal Japan comes to life because of how engrossing every second is. More than almost any other games out there, Ghost of Tsushima is so vehemently focused on beauty and presentation. Oftentimes, entire scenes revolve around nothing more than the splash of color of one massive tree in an otherwise desolate place, or a sea of vibrant yellow across the ground that brings so much life to the experience and separates this world from all the other generic ones out there in games. And because of how impactful so many of the moments are, it tells a story all to itself. The tenets of a great samurai, honor, respect, duty, and diligence are all expressed without even a word needing to be uttered. It's the perfect example of how important a setting and how it is crafted can be to telling stories in games, because the worlds we fall in love with oftentimes are the ones that have a distinct sense of beauty all to themselves, not the ones that simply serve as a playground to nothing more than an assortment of game mechanics. Some of the most powerful moments in games stem from this title right here, and that's because beauty in games is such an underrated thing. Oftentimes we focus so much more on how a game plays or how the narrative is structured, whether or not there are bugs or if the graphics look just right. But I think the key to so much great art isn't necessarily all that, but rather something more. how a game makes you feel. Because if a game can make you feel something, then it has the chance to last with you for a lifetime, not just for as long as you play. And sometimes all you need for a sense like that is a world full of such beauty and awe that it's hard to look away, one that sweeps you off your feet and beckons you in. I've always been of the belief that the best possible game world imaginable, the one with the most intrigue, the most vast and interesting spaces, and the one with the most beauty would be one set in space. But sadly, because of how hard it is to capture this setting compared to things like traditional fantasy, it's seldom studios take the risk on it. We have things like No Man's Sky and Star Citizen, but they are either not quite everything we need or not fully done yet. Luckily for us though, we do have Starfield, which despite its many issues, is still home to some of the most breathtaking worlds out there. And that's because one of the most exciting parts of Starfield is the idea of what's out there. The planets, the cities, and the random events that can occur in the vastness of space, and while most of it falls flat, some of the environments truly are breathtaking. Landing on a massive ice ball of a moon hovering across a nearby planet and seeing the sun rise in the distance is a feeling no other game gives, and just looking out into the vastness of the planets and space alike is so moving. You can set up an outpost on a planet and just sit in a chair as the sounds of the world carry on and a nearby sun or planet hovers close by as night begins to fall. And it's moments like that that really show what a beautiful universe Starfield can really have at times. Some of the cities like New Atlantis and Neon have an impressive scale and use of colors, along with multiple different zones that highlight just how great the art design can really be. I hound Bethesda all day on things I wish they could do better, but one thing they certainly got right in many cases is how impressive a lot of the interiors in Starfield are too. There are seemingly endless locations across multiple planets full of distinct and varied architecture and stories all to their own. And because of how open the game's format is, it makes it all that more powerful when you stumble upon something with so much care put into it. There were so many times in my playthroughs of the game where I would land on a random planet not knowing what to expect and be met with a sea of strange and interesting animal and plant life that filled my screen with colors I hadn't seen before. Seeing a mountain in the distance and knowing that you can climb it, finding a nearby river and deciding to put up an outpost because of how rare rivers are in planets, or traveling up multiple stories of a megastructure lost on a moon. And even though so much of the environments and places are procedurally generated, it still doesn't take away from how eye-catching they can be at times. After all, nature itself isn't that hard to simulate, and nature just on its own, without any touch-ups, is so stunning in its own right. Maybe the single most beautiful parts of the worlds, though, are those planets with almost nothing on them at all. Because after all, one of the most haunting yet exhilarating parts of space is just how empty it can really be. And landing on these massive balls of nothingness really puts into perspective how grand and impressive the universe really is. And that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Looking out into a galaxy and just wondering what's out there. Wondering if there may be some higher power or unknown forces at work that have crafted the very places we stand on, or if it's nothing more than a math equation firing into infinity. The things that make Starfield so beautiful despite all of its flaws is there just aren't any other games out there that seize this kind of feeling currently, whether it be due to scale or setting, and it just shows how good space games could be and how much potential the setting really has. Worlds and universes that truly have the potential to be anything, and in many ways are the holy grail to what a game world could be like and just how beautiful they could be. It's why I get excited about things like Mass Effect Next or Star Citizen, because there's a scale and sense to space that you can't encapsulate with fantasy alone, and that astounding sense of loneliness with hope is one I personally find so fascinating.